Here we go. So it's 6.4, similar triangles. We want to find the geometric mean of these numbers. So when you're doing geometric mean, it's the square root of the two numbers multiplied together. The square root of the product. So over here, it'll be the square root of 3 times 12. 3 times 12 is 36. Square root of 36 is 6. That's the answer. So this one would be 7 and 10. So 7 and 10, square root of 70. Square root of 70. So your calculator, square root of 70 is 8.4. That is the geometric mean, square root of the product. Okay, this time, if the geometric mean is this, find the value of b. I need more space. Okay, well, not gonna work. Let's go with it. So this time, remember it's square root of a times b equals x. I'm just going to substitute things in. Square root of 2 times b equals 6. So these are the steps you have to do. You square both sides. So it's going to be 2 times b equals 36. Then you divide by a. Divide by a, divide by a, you get b equals 18. So take note, when you have something like this, those are the steps you do. You square both of them, and then you divide by a. Is that a shortcut? Yes, that's a shortcut. So 7 squared. 7 squared is 49. That's the first step. You square it. And then 49 divided by 4. 49 divided by 4 is 12.25. Okay, so that is doing it with a shortcut. So take a look at this. Square root of 4 times b equals 7. 4b equals, I'm sorry, what am I doing? You gotta square it. So you square both sides. You get 4b equals 49. Divide by 4. B equals 12.25. So the shortcut works. Or you can just do the steps. Either way. Okay, so now we're going to start dealing with triangles. When you have a right triangle with a right triangle inside of the right triangle, here's what we're dealing with. This is what the triangle looks like. Let's actually do a black one. So you have a right triangle. That's your 90. This is your hypotenuse here. That's your hypotenuse. This is the short leg. You have hypotenuse and you have 2 legs. So there's going to be a shorter leg and a longer leg. Long leg. So those are the things on the outside. And on the inside, the altitude splits it right here, creates a 90. So now you have these other 2 triangles here. But this is the altitude. And then the hypotenuse gets split into 2 parts. So part 1 is the shorter part, and part 2 is the longer part. Once you can identify these things, you can use the formula. So like right here, what do we have? We have, this is part 2, this is part 1, and this is the altitude. So your x is the altitude. Let's just identify these parts. This is the long leg. And again, you have part 2 and part 1. Over here, this is the short. Part 2 and part 1. So for this first example, you need altitude. So there's only one formula with altitude. Part 1 over altitude equals altitude over part 2. So I'm just write that formula down. I already forgot it. 1 and 2. So this one, it's part 1 over altitude equals altitude over part 2.
Bless you.
Thank you. Hey, you notice we haven't done any work, right? We're just identifying pieces in the triangle. So now let's substitute stuff in. Part 1. Okay, so part 1 is 9. Altitude is x. Altitude is x. Part 2 is 16. So now it's like the assignments we did before the break. X times x, you're over here, equals 9 times 16. 9 times 16. So 9 times 16 is 144. X times x is x squared. And so to get this answer, you square root both of them. You get x equals 12. It's going to work the same with the other ones. So I'll just go over them so you have examples for each kind. Okay, this time we're looking for the long. So the long is what we're looking for. There's one formula that has long on it. So basically just whatever that your variable is, use one of these formulas and use that to find out what you're trying to do. So part 2 over long equals long over height. So part 2 over long equals long over height. So part 2 is 16. The long is y. Long is y. But we don't have hypotenuse, do we? Remember hypotenuse is this line here, right here? So 16 plus 9 is 25. So we do have a hypotenuse. 25 goes here. So cross multiply again. 25 times 16 is 400. So y times y equals 16 times 25. So y squared equals 400. Take the square root. Got 20. Square root of 400. It's 20. Ta-da! So y is 20. The last one on here is the short. So with the short, you do have a formula for short. So it's part 1 over short equals short over height. So you just fill them in. I'm actually not going to work this one out because it's exactly like the previous one with different numbers. So remember, part 1 is 9 divided by short is z. Short is z, and the hypotenuse is 25. So again, you cross multiply there and solve it. Yeah, this is how you do today's assignment. So let's stop this recording.